Thank you for attending the Zoom class. We are going to be reviewing the math concepts that you learned in Unit 3. I am Mr. Dawson. I'm going to be a teacher for this Zoom class. So we're going to go over all the assignments that we learned. So starting off, assignment 2, we learned about two graphing systems of linear equations. The first, graphing a system of linear equations, is as simple as graphing two straight lines. The second, to solve a system of linear equations by graphing. To solve, we graph both equations in the same coordinate system. The solution to the system will be in the point where two lines intersect. In Lesson 3, we learned two algebraic methods to solve systems. The first is the substitution method. It's a way to solve the system of equations which requires calculating one of the variables from one equation and substituting it into the other equation. The second method is the elimination method. You can either add or subtract the equations to get an equation in one variable. When the coefficients of one variable are opposites, you add the equations to eliminate a variable, and when the coefficients of one variable are equal, you subtract the equations to eliminate a variable. In Lesson 4, we learned about systems of equations with three or more variables. Pick any two pairs of equations from the system, eliminate the same variable from each pair using the addition/subtraction method, solve the system of the two new equations using the addition/subtraction method, substitute the solution back into one of the original equations, and solve for the third variable. Lesson 5, we learned about four operations with rationals. A rational expression is simply a quotient of two polynomials, or in other words, it is a fraction whose numerator and denominator are polynomials. To multiply rational expressions, complete factor all numerators and denominators, reduce all common factors, either multiply the denominators and numerators or leave the answer in factored form. Adding and subtracting rational expressions. To add and subtract with the same denominator, we simply add or subtract the numerators and write the result over the common denominator. When the denominators are not the same, we must arrange them so that they become the same. Complex rational expressions. Simplifying complex rational expressions, you need to follow three simple steps that I go by is converting the numerator and denominator into single fractions, performing division on the fractions, and simplifying the numerator and denominator by removing common factors. To do the first step, this term must be the same denominator. Lesson 6, we learned about solving rational equations and applications. You can solve rational equations by finding a common denominator by rewriting the equations so that all the terms have the common denominator. You can also solve the variable using just the numerators. Lesson 7, we learned about rational formulas and variation. Rational formulas can be used to solve a variety of problems that involves rates, times, and work. Direct inverse and joint variation equations are examples of rational formulas. In direct variation, the variables have a direct relationship. As one quantity increases, the other quantity will also increase. We also learned that direct variation is said to be the relationship between two variables in which one is a constant multiple of the other. There's also inverse variation. This is the relationships between variables that are represented in the form of y equals kx, where x and y are two variables and k is the constant value. It states if the value of one quantity increases, then the value of the other quantity decreases. Then joint variation, it describes a situation where one variable depends on two or more other variables and varies directly as each one of them when the others are held constant. We say z varies jointly as x and y. If z equals kxy for some constant k. Well, that's it for this class. I did go fast through all the things, but after reviewing what we learned in this unit, you should be ready to move on to the post-tests. When you complete those, you can move on to Unit 4. Good luck.